Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will, and I am not trying to give y'all my Barry White impression tonight.
Isaac
Brothers.
Hayes.
Isaac Hayes, right. right, right. I'm not trying to do that. Howsoever.
Quiet storm.
Howsoever. Tonight, we are coming to you with Nobody 2, man. Nobody 2 is the movie for tonight. Man, we ready to talk about this. Mr. Will, what's going on with you?
Man, this is the greatest time of year, arguably. And I say that from a sports fan's perspective. So, as our longtime followers and even newcomers could attest, I've been rocking my team Raider paraphernalia. This year, this episode, I switched it up a little bit. I'm not a Ravens fan.
Because you do got the purple on, man. You had it because that's offensive to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say no disrespect to the Steelers, even though we don't rock with y'all either. But I'd rather choose y'all than them, because I just feel like they left the city of Cleveland in a lurch overnight, and that's kind of cowardly. And then they try to reinvent themselves. If anything, they should have just created a whole new team and left Cleveland where it was. But that's another day. I'm rocking this joint because I'm a Yankee fan.
Let the hate flow through you. Good.
Well, one of our unofficial mascots is Darth Vader, so I'm just saying.
Okay, yeah, good. Let it come on in.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Men in Black. Anti-Raven sentiment.
I'm just saying. But at the same token, they do say purple is regal, so, I guess it's the king in me. But yeah, it's the Yankees. They're trying to clinch up that wild card spot. A little disappointing year, but I wanted them obviously to finish it first. They're about 3 games back as of tonight, behind Toronto. So I'm rooting hard for us to finish up this September for the October push, and then basketball is right around the corner. So this is it, man, right here, We're in the high life.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. Yeah, it's a good time, man. I'm rocking these sunglasses on respect to Canelo Alvarez
post-fight
Bud Crawford joint post-fight. Look, first of all, I'm gonna let y'all know, Netflix, if you're listening, and I really hope you are, there's got to be a way to get these fights on before 1 o'clock in the morning.
Here.
Yo, because look, the elderly people like myself, we need to go to bed, and it's like I stayed up all night to watch Crawford dog Canelo. For 12 rounds, boy. Yo, come on, man. He listen, shout outs to Bud Crawford, man. Just a tactician in the ring against a quality opponent, obviously a champion. Canelo, amazing fighter for such a long time. Yeah. Man, Crawford was in his bag last night, man. On the big stage. So I stayed up late. I'm trying to hide these bloodshot eyes. You know what I'm saying? Sunglasses and Advil. Last night was mad trill, and here we are, man. So, Mr. Will, man, let's jump into the summary, man. Let's get ready to talk about Nobody 2.
Yeah. So, 4 years after burning the Russian mob's money and incurring a massive debt, Hutch Mansell's working for the barber to repay what he owes. His life, and his home life, that is, with his wife and his children, is strained. He's resolved to try and take them on a much-needed vacation to one of his childhood vacation spots, Wild Bill's Magic Midway and Water Park in Plummerville. This is a nostalgic place that he visited during childhood. Hutch hopes to break up the monotony and reconnect with his family. However, a seemingly small incident, his son's conflict with a bully at an arcade, and then followed up with an employee mistreating his younger daughter, Hutch then pulls them into a conflict with the local villains. That confrontation escalates when corrupt Sheriff Abel, a theme park owner by the name of Wyatt, and a host of other criminals led by a mysterious woman by the name of Lindina turn Hutch's attempt at a peaceful reconnect with his family into a dangerous fight for survival. Now, just to follow up with that, I don't mean to interject. For those that haven't watched, obviously this is a sequel, but Hutch is the main character of this story from the preceding movie, Nobody, in which he is a undercover government agent who goes out and is kind of like a cleaner, if you will. I don't want to be too illicit for our younger
Got it.
viewing audience, but
Got it.
he manages to tie up any loose ends on behalf of the United States government.
Got it.
Having a moment of clarity, if you will, where the mountaintop actually came to him, he decided this is no longer the route, the route of dispensing of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, he goes about this new reclamation project of getting on with his quote unquote civilian life. He ends up
There it is.
marrying, has 2 children, Brady and his daughter. And then once, he settles into his new life, things become a little stale. His wife sees that he's struggling with these urges. Unfortunately, the Russian mob that is, enters in his home after him. And
It's
again,
always the Russian mob. Always the Russian mob.
it's always
Always
the
them.
mob. Some type of mob, but more than often, it's the Russian mob.
Russian mob, yeah.
The big bad boogie monster. And then after that, he manages to settle this dispute in only the fashion that I like, that CJ has affectionately labeled as the calamity. And then Hutch burns the Oberstock, which is supposed to be this massive amount of money that was saved away by one of the Russian oligarch mafia members, leading to that individual's untimely displacement from this planet. Hutch now has to pay the debt that the barber covered for him, a longtime ally who has helped service and coordinate his services to other parties.
There it is. Yeah, thank you for that refresher on the Nobody 1. Nobody 2 is now recently on streaming.
Yep.
So it was on theaters. I think it came out like right around mid-August.
Yep, that's true.
August 16th. Yeah, so it's on streamers now, so you can get on everything wherever you get your movies. You can get this one as well. And it starts off right with Hutch doing these jobs for the barber, and really, really looking like he's burning out on the killing of people. So I think you appreciate the backstory of how he got into that situation, because I don't know if I missed that detail, but I didn't remember that he burned the money and then the barber paid the debt, and then that's why he was doing it. So that's that. Yo, I know like this was one of the picks that you had. Yo, tell me what you love about this film, man.
Yeah, well,
or what you love about the franchise.
I think it's something unexpected. This guy is very unassuming, and if you're a follower of Bob, you'll know that in his other careers he's a comedian. He has a dry, witty sense of humor. So seeing him in a different light automatically made me stand up and take notice. Then there's a lot of similarities to other films that I like. Everyone, again, who follows us tends to notice I like John Wick. This is kind of like the poor man's version of John Wick, a more comedic version of it. There's a bunch of other similarities, such as like the team. What is it? It's like HBO. What's the dude on there who goes around, becomes an actor, but he's still an assassin?
I know. Yeah, it was actually referenced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll look. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So like I'm an admirer of that type of genre. I love Connie Nielsen, especially her in Wonder Woman.
Barry.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Barry. It brought about Doc from Back to the Future, Christopher Lloyd. So I'm glad that he's still with us and he's still acting. And he brings a very witty sense of humor as the father who's still engaged or can be engaged in this type of arena. And then, of course, a big diehard Wu-Tang fan. So anything that the Riz is in, I'm automatically trying to peep it. Matter of fact, he's got a movie coming out. If it hasn't already dropped, shout out to him. And so, yeah, man, just seeing this all come together in this like little like small town environment, and the sidebar jokes that tend to come up with these types of movies, and the change of pace, and almost like making fun of the lead character without him being aware that he's the butt of the jokes always gets to me. But yet at the same time, again, this unassuming individual is able to take out, platoons and scores of individuals.
Yeah, got it. And so, Bob Odenkirk. So, have you ever watched Better Call Saul?
Yeah,
okay.
Man. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't, because I have not gotten to that yet.
Even with him in Breaking Bad. That's because that's originally where the character originates from. But that's what I'm saying. Like, to go from these different characters to this is like, wow, okay. He's very diverse.
Yeah, I've not gotten around to Breaking Bad. Well, getting
Mm.
through it. I've gotten to like season one,
Yeah, yeah.
but I just if somehow I missed it when it was coming out, and
Mm.
then like there's a certain time of year that I really
Yeah,
watch
of
television
course, man.
shows,
Yeah,
other because like you said, it's the best time of year we watch sports for 9 months straight, man.
yeah,
But
man.
yeah, no, it's I definitely saw Nobody Won. Always what stands out to me is the bus scene, the bus fight scene,
Yeah.
because it's like that's like I think what we all thought about doing some points. Like,
Hmm.
if you ever rode the bus anywhere in a major
Come on,
city,
man.
it's like 10 people you want to fight on the bus all the
Yeah.
time. So with that scene, that was like that always hooked me. And in this film, when they do the scene on the boat, it's like a
It's like, it's like
like a
an homage.
reminder, yeah, like an homage to that scene as well. One of the things I really like about this movie is like just the whole idea of wanting to take your family on vacation.
Hmm.
Like I remember a couple episodes ago we did National Lampoons. We
Lampoons.
did the
Yep.
Christmas
Yeah.
Vacation, right?
This is similar.
And yeah, and it's like, there's this film is on that. This vacation thing is like, the vacation part, but then there's also like this violent massacre part.
Hmm.
Like, that's why we call it episode Vacation
Hmm.
Massacre. But I dig when like dudes try to like do something like that
Yes.
with their family, because it's like and we all do it. And it's kind of like, the yearly physical. Like you got to do it. It's good for you. You should. But it's like, I don't know how this joint gonna work out.
Yeah.
Like I just,
I'm not sure this is gonna play out the way
I
it's
don't know how
supposed
it's
to.
gonna play out, but I want to do it. And so I like that he tried to do it. And of course, the kids sometimes they want to go, sometimes they
Hmm.
don't. They don't want to leave their phones, all this kind of stuff. So I just that's always a part of the story that's gonna resonate with me.
And the thing too is, I like that his family is very intimate. By that I mean, like, they have their routine, they do their thing. He still has the bond with his daughter, where she still believes that he's her knight in shining armor. So it's
Yeah,
not like he's a lost cause. His son has some resentment there, but I think it's more about the growing pains of raising a son,
no
and
doubt.
him eventually trying to challenge and usurp you as the figurehead. And then, of course, reconnecting with your wife. As a lot of men can attest, you got to spice it up. You
Yeah.
got to diversify. You got to stay engaged. You got to try and do things that are unexpected. That
Mm-hmm.
spontaneity helps, and it doesn't have to be overt gestures or anything out of the, like, extraordinary. It could just be the little things. Maybe go for a walk in the park. Maybe
Yeah.
have a little brunch, flowers to the job, et cetera, things of that
Yeah.
ilk.
Do it like the Cialis commercial. Sit outside the bathtubs in the forest. Just do that shit. That always looks weird to me, man. I'm seeing people like I'm like, yo, why? How did y'all get the bathtubs out there? Number one, and then why did you put water in the bathtubs? And then why do I want to be in a bathtub in the water in the forest? Like, what's go? What's
I,
the romance? And then what does it do with Cialis? Like, then I mean, well, I know it has to do with Cialis, but why is this? Why is this here? But no, I got you. You do have to do all of those things, and I think when we've covered a couple kind of movies like this, and I think what makes this one different is that the Hutch character has a family,
yep.
and we've always talked about like, all right, how do you do this, like as a person?
Hmm.
Really like, so many like, obviously John Wick, doesn't have a family,
Hmm. And that's the
and
motivation, though.
when we did the Killer's Game,
Mm.
Batista's character was kind of trying to build towards that, but
Hmm.
he was like in a relationship. When we did the joint about what was the thing with the guy with the painter who was also a killer. It'll come to me in a second. But even him, he wasn't like in the family thing. But Hutch got, like you said, a wife,
Hmm.
two kids, and they have expectations of him. They want him to show up to basketball games. They want him to show up
Yep.
to things. The wife wants him to be present, and only the wife really knows. Like, yeah, but he's out here killing people for a living. Like there's a strain that comes with that. So it's like it's interesting to see like that kind of dynamic and to see his character try to work within the traditional frame of like the regular good husband and father.
And it's a piggyback on that too, though. I think the thing that is missed out is, not, the children do have a sense of who he is, because of everything they went through in the first movie. But I don't think, to your point, that it's to the degree, obviously, that his wife knows. And even
Yeah.
she is a little clueless because, he's probably seen some things that he doesn't even feel he can remember, recite. So he's had to repress it. So
Hmm.
that's one point. Two, I think at this phase of his game, he is trapped between caring for his father, even though his father is in an elderly home, but still
Hmm.
keeping him involved in those ties. That's why they included him in the vacation, but as well as child rearing and staying active with his wife. And then, of course, the RZA is his brother in this,
Hmm.
and so he,
Different stroke
yeah,
style.
and so they have to kind of like make sure that their bonds are there. So, how do
Yeah.
you manage to do all of that and be a professional assassin,
Right.
um, and remember that you got to make it home every day? How do you do that by keeping some type of schedule? How do you do that and also, come to the rationalization that, yeah, I'm taking other people away from their families or the ability to have a family? Clint Eastwood
Yeah.
said, you take away, I forget which Western it is, but he's like, killing is a serious business. You take away everything that a man was, everything that he is, and everything that he will be. And,
Yeah.
how do you come to terms with that? And then last but not least, the thing that really, I see him struggling with is you want your children to be better versions of you. You want them to be a better quality of human than you. So him trying to tell Brady like, hey, don't you do that. I get that you want to stick up for your daughter, your sister, and that's admirable, but there's other ways to do it. And then
Yeah.
Brady reprimands him in that same scene, like, how you telling me to keep calm and then you're losing your composure?
Yeah, and that leads to like my other like major theme. And by the way, the film I was talking about was when we did the Kill Room,
Oh
which is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, the
yeah.
Kill Room. So episode 30 for those that
Mm-hmm.
want to check out a review of that film. So there's like that part about the son being like, look at how you handle conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the hard things I think about manhood is this idea of trying to
Uh,
figure out when you should resort
mm.
to violence and when you should negotiate, right?
It's
And
hard to
and
walk
it's
away
like
sometimes.
it's hard. Yeah, it really truly is because you're always thinking about I'll say for me, I'm always thinking like did I let it go and I shouldn't have. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like oh, am I being a punk now? Like you
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah, no.
we have that. And you don't I think like when you're younger, like to the brother, to the son's age, when you're younger, I don't think you think about that as
No.
much
Mm-mm.
because your idea of like being a man isn't really formed yet.
No.
And I think it's easier to just get into fights and all those
Of
things because you
course
don't really
is.
think about the what am I losing
Mm-hmm.
in that, right? But then you get older and you're like at Hutch's age, and yeah, I get it. Hutch is a killing machine and everything, but there is still something that's lost. Like I don't remember what movie it was. Oh, Roadhouse.
Mm.
When Patrick Swayze said like nobody wins a fight.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody actually wins a fight. But you don't really realize that until you're older and
Mm-hmm.
like stuff
And
happens,
you've been
because
in
like
fights. Yeah.
yeah, you've been in fights and you got to go to work with a black eye, you know what I mean? Your arm is at the sling and you're
Yeah.
like 38 years old and it's stupid, or the cops show up and now,
Mm-hmm.
you get taken down to the county and everything. And it's like
Why not just
that
let it go?
that's the consequences, right? But can you let it go, and can you decide like for sure when violence is the answer and when it's really not?
And that's the thing too. I think it's not just like right now we're talking about violence, but it's just
Hmm.
it's adulthood, or trying to be mature, taking accountability for your actions, being your true authentic self. Identifying what it is that makes you you. So if you
Hmm.
are an individual who is into confrontations, you're easily excitable. One of the things they talk about is you don't operate anything or function in any type of capacity when you're in an emotional state. So you don't get in the car if you're angry because you'll start
Yeah.
speeding, you can hit somebody, whatever. You don't try and negotiate, any type of deal, when you're in a position of weakness. Shout
Yeah.
out to 50 and Sun Tzu. You only engage in things that you know that you can win, and you try
Hmm.
to avoid the fight without fighting. Whereas Hutch, this is really analysis of, it's not even so much about Lindina or him trying to repay the barber. This is more about, like the barber mentions, yeah, you're going to go on vacation, but good luck with that because wherever you
Yeah.
go, you're going to bring you. And you, my friend, your nature is violence. And even when his
Yeah.
wife is telling him, walk away, don't have this in front of the children, etc., etc. Both of them are not being honest because you knew when you're laying on the bed, as you recited, this is a guy you met and you knew he was dangerous because he was covered in blood. He never hid
Yeah.
it from you. And this is a
Yeah.
guy who was covered in blood,
Yeah.
and figuratively and
And
metaphorically.
literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a great I remember reading this book years ago. It's called When Violence is the Answer. And I
Mm.
don't remember who the author is. I'll look it up when you as you're talking, but it's like the whole book was really it was written by a guy who was like a ex-police officer, and
Okay.
then he got into like the personal security business. And he just was sharing all these stories about like conflict and like things that happened and like really trying to create in the mind of the reader the difference between when you absolutely have to fight somebody
Mm.
and every other situation. And I always remember him being like, yo, unless you cannot flee
Mm.
or get like out of the situation or it can be de-escalated in some way, that's the only time that you're fighting.
Mm.
And the thing with this film is Hutch doesn't really have that. Like
Mm.
Hutch, like even when they leave the arcade, he comes back to the arcade to get everybody. Like they were
Mm.
they
Yeah.
were essentially out. And then, I know the dude shoved his daughter, and that would push
Yeah.
me over the top. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So I get that. But then it was like it just spiraled from there, from
Mm.
there, from there. And to your point, the barber is right. Like Hutch is a killer.
Mm.
It's like that's
Can't escape.
killing is in his blood. So he doesn't really know. Like his
Mm.
his resistance to violence is a lot less than the average person.
And that's the thing too, man. Like his father brought them there under the false pretense that they were on a family vacation. Meanwhile, no, his dad was on the job. His dad
Yeah.
was gonna,
Yeah.
eliminate somebody there. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until the RZA helped him recollect the full image of what it was that happened, and he wasn't just wrapped up in nostalgia, which again also led to his downfall because he bumps into this country bumpkin corrupt Sheriff Abel, and that's
Yeah.
not lost upon me that Cain and Abel um,
Yep.
you know, and he's just staring into space. He's not eyeball. Yeah, don't eyeball him. And I don't understand what it is about a good segment of individuals who happen to have power, where they feel that they can just say and do whatever it is they want merely because they have a title. It's only
Yeah.
illegal because you said it was illegal. It wasn't illegal because of some other innate reason why. It's because you personally have a problem with it. So you had a personal issue with him staring into space because you're probably that same little kid who was bullied back in whatever, and now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're trying to make amends. But I digress. The point of this movie for me is that I really that really appealed to me was here's a guy who he's trying to do the best he can, but is he really trying to do the best he can, or is he just saying that? And then at the same time, his wife, I'm surprised Becca is so supportive because
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like I'm waiting for her to check out and be like, "Yo, enough is enough. I'm done."
Yeah. Yeah.
But she gave a lot of like rousing speeches in which she's like, "No, you're my guy. Now go
Yeah.
handle it. Like whatever you got to do, you go do what you got to do. You just make sure you come home and you make sure that you left all that stuff behind." That was refreshing because typically, like I said, you're accustomed to the wife checking out. Brady,
Yeah.
you could see that he is the third generation of potential
Killers.
yeah, and yet simultaneously Hutch still manages to be nurturing with his daughter, and I thought that was
Hmm.
really dope.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. The book is called When Violence is the Answer. It's by Tim Larkin.
Shout out
For
to Mr.
anybody that wants
Larkin.
to check it out. Yeah, it's a dope little piece, man. Yo, let's get into the cake, man, because I know we
Yeah,
talked about a couple of things that we dug. Let me share with you my joints.
yeah.
So you talked about the son. I liked that the son wasn't like a punk. Like
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the way that they were gonna be going. Like he got the black eye
Yeah,
because he was getting beat up, and then I thought his trajectory would be like he becomes tough.
yeah.
But I like the fact that he was kind of
Nah, he was there. It
he
was
had
in him.
he was balanced.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually balanced, and then Hutch is kind of like really all over the place in
Yeah,
terms of the violence part. But I dug that. I like the scene where his wife is really pressing him out, making it seem like he didn't prepare. He wasn't
yeah.
thinking. She thought he had the bag of
That's
guns
all on
with
the
him.
fly, and he was trying
Right,
to.
right, right.
Yeah,
But instead, he had the bottle of wine.
mm-hmm.
I liked that part
Yeah.
a
It's
lot.
romantic, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like he's trying,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did. So I liked that part of it as well. And then let me just find my notes here real quick because I got turned off. Yo, I like that. Oh, the RZA
It's
Batman
a
ninja
Batman.
scene.
It's
I
crazy.
forgot about that. Look, I feel like when I was watching that scene, I feel like RZA said, "I'll come back and do this movie if I can do this scene." Like if y'all can give me a scene where I can fight somebody with a ninja sword, I'll do this. I'll do the movie. And they were like, all right, cool, Riz, we got you. You can do it. But it's
We
handled
got you,
well.
Riz.
I like it. And when I'm watching it, I just felt like I was hearing the mystery of chess boxing, like the intro playing while he was doing it. So that it was just I love to see Riz doing classic stuff like that. So those were definitely the parts of the film that I dug.
And you think you're slick, man. First of all, there is a Batman anime called Batman Ninja.
Batman Ninja
Two,
Warrior, yeah.
there's a sequel called Batman Ninja versus the Yakuza League. So
Hmm.
you're dropping little jewels there. I like that. Um, I definitely like the fact that you like the fact that the movie highlights RZA being in this joint, man. Like
Mm.
he was like, "Yo, I'll come back if you allow me to do this scene."
You know what I mean? If
Uh,
using I want to do a ninja
yeah,
sword scene. If I could do that, I'll be back.
I definitely like that, and I can appreciate not only the fact that you mentioned like the son defending the daughter and everything like that.
Mm.
Sammy is her name. Um, I can appreciate that him proving his wife wrong, because that is the calamity where
Yeah.
his wife is underestimating him, thinking that this was on the fly, et cetera, et cetera. But no, he told her he was going to plan it. And you know what? She was pleasantly surprised because she's always felt let down. I like that that's a sense of realism where,
Yeah.
you do have one partner who may have unmet expectations because they feel let down so many times and given so many chances. And then you have the other person who undoubtedly recognizes that flaw in them. For whatever reason, these things go awry, they go amiss, and they're trying to make things right before it's too late, quote unquote. So
Hmm.
I definitely appreciate you, CJ, highlighting that. But
Okay.
let's get into the hate, man. Um,
All right. So I got a couple. Just a
yeah, I
couple
know.
things. A couple things. So all right, this is my pet peeve in movies in general.
Mhm.
Yo, I'm old. I cannot read the text messages on the screen, on the film, on the actual phone. Like put the big
Mhm.
text message bubbles up. Let me read them that way so I can follow along with the story.
You know, with the eye strain, huh?
I miss major details when they do that. So
Mm.
anything on text, I don't know what the text messages said. I gotta like get home and ask Chat GPT what did the text messages say, and nobody to read them. That's just always gonna be something that annoys me. So I alluded to this a little bit before. I feel like this was kind of the B tier, the
Mm.
Division 2 set of villains in terms of like people for him to fight. And I guess compared to the Russian mafia, it
Mm.
would be, but it just made it feel like not only was Hutch like kind of always never really in danger,
Mm.
but I also didn't feel like his family was in danger. It would have I think I
Oh,
would have liked to
okay.
see a more compelling kind of villain there. It was predictable to me that the wife was going to get involved at some point, especially with Ladinia. Is that how they pronounce her name?
It's Lendina.
Lendina. Okay, especially with Lendina being the villain, it was just a good segue. I knew the wife was going to get involved. I thought that was kind of predictable. And then, all right, the last scene. All right, so Hutch has killed like a whole warehouse full of dudes. His body count is about 37 in this movie, right?
Easily.
I'm just guessing that. I didn't chat
Yeah,
GPT
but
that.
easily.
But then at the end, these two women are just gonna beat him up like a straight up just dump. Like two women just gonna jump him and beat him. Like, dog, that's not real. Come on, we could do better than that. I understand that it was just set up for the wife to show up with the gun.
Hmm.
I get it. But that just didn't
Yeah, it
fold for
didn't
me.
fly.
That didn't rock for me. So that was the things that I did not like about the film.
I concur. You do want a more challenging and compelling villain. Even video games managed to pull that off. So,
Yeah,
and kudos to Sharon Stone. I liked seeing her back on the main
it was
screen.
good to see Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then she
agreed.
even had her little crazy Joker dance vibe thing going on,
Yeah.
uh, which kind of evoked me reminiscing about Madonna because of the whole suit thing. Um,
She was given like the justify my love
yeah,
vibe
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of with
yeah,
the suit. Yeah,
yeah.
she did have that. Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I would have liked to seen her more fleshed out, if you will. So that was a
Hmm.
little disappointing. Um, it pains me to say that, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Um, there was a lack of resolution with the son for my liking. Um,
Okay,
like
I agree.
I
I agree.
don't.
That storyline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know
I
what I mean?
agree.
Like I didn't feel it executed the landing well. You know,
Mhm.
like what's the end result? I mean, Brady's got a girlfriend and they didn't really delve too much into that for obvious reasons, time restraints, et cetera, et cetera. She
Mhm.
wasn't part of the vacation. But, you know, how do you go back to basically seeming like everything is you know,
Mm.
hokey dory and
Yeah.
everything is cool? Like I don't know, you know, what happens between him and the dad? Do they have a long conversation? Does
Yeah.
grandpa intervene and give him some perspective like, hey, your father went through this because I did this to him? And like, how does that all come together? And then Sammy, you know, she's still naive and young, so maybe they've protected her and done a great job of that. But I'm not sure how she comes out so unscathed and unbothered after seeing a
Yeah.
guy invade the cabin, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how they pulled that off. And then last but not least, I'm with CJ. Hutch has killed scores of men who are 3, 4 times his size, and yet these three females who are a buck 20 each, soaking wet, managed to get the drop on him, running
And a straight
almost.
up face, like
They
straight up in the fact they didn't sneak him, no
no,
sneak
no, they
attack.
ran up on him
Yeah.
straight in his face, 100, two
Yeah.
hundred meters, and then just start beating him with
Yeah.
melee weapons. Like, what are you doing? They didn't shoot
Yeah.
him, wound him, whatever. They just start
Yeah.
pounding on him, and he lets it.
Yeah. Yeah. It just yeah, that didn't flow.
No.
And I also, you know how I am about like the endings of things.
Hmm.
The film, the to me the character arc for Hutch's character is like, okay, does he have a problem with violence?
Yeah.
And where does he land at the end of that?
Hmm.
Is he like, all right, I am a maniac
Yeah.
psycho killer,
And what do I
or I'm
do?
not, and I'm trying to change?
Hmm.
But you don't get that. Instead, you get the montage of film pictures of
Yeah.
them having a good time at the end. And it's like they just put a bow on it and like come back to see Nobody 3 to see what happens, to see if they get through that.
Well, see, that's my question. You know, like the violence isn't cathartic anymore. You know, it's not a release. Now it's almost like pathetic. Like it's like the tone has shifted, you know,
Yeah.
where it's constantly living in survival mode. Well, how do you do that? Your adrenaline, like between your adrenaline and your cortisol, your body is all like off the Richter scale. And this is a guy who manages to keep in pretty decent shape for obvious reasons. Um,
Hmm.
and yet at the same time, you know how John Wick got bigger and expanded the universe, and so you got to see what was going on in Tokyo, and you got to see what's going on in Paris. Well, now it's contracted, where it's going back at the same time to where the origins of Hutch
Yeah.
and his brother, like where they're coming from. And then it talks about like what's really deep inside him. Killer Priest has this line where he's like, "Inner space is far deeper than outer space." So you
Hmm.
know what's the path of him, you know, actually doing the work and getting to the root causes as to, excuse me, why he does the things that he does. You know, what is it about him that actually puts him in these situations?
Yeah.
I'd like to see something be resolved at that.
Yo, those are good questions, and those are actually great segues to my question because
Hmm.
I got a couple for you
All
about
right.
this. And the first is, what do you think? I mean, I what do you think is the draw for these types of films? And what I mean by these types of films is obviously you have the John Wick
Hmm.
franchise, which is now 4 movies in. You got Ballerina, you got Nobody, who's now spawned off two films, and then there's been a whole bunch of other things that we've also covered. What do you think is the attraction to the assassin versus the mass kind of film like genre?
Well, you also left out the Continental. Shout out to Peacock.
Right. I was talking about the movies.
Oh, okay. Um, I think the appeal is we all have that killer in us, and
Okay.
I don't necessarily mean like yo you have the potential for violence. No, I mean like yo instinctually millions of years of DNA, you know, epigenetics within us that says like, look, when you're going with your intuition, you know, literally there's a signal in your maglia, I believe it is, that goes off that says like, yo, there's a reason why you don't trust him because your ancestors had to be aware of potential dangers, potential threats.
Hmm.
So you know when to recognize it, when something doesn't feel right, when you go into a room and the lights are off and you sense someone is in the room with you or the energy doesn't feel right. You may have never even spoken to this person before. I think
Hmm.
that appeals to the public. I think also what appeals to them is that if you can show a vulnerable individual who's supposed to be this, you know, unstoppable, indestructible killing machine, actually go through, you know, something that throws a curveball, comes directly out of left field. Um, how does he cope with that? This is some
Hmm.
uncharted water for him. You know, with John Wick, With Hutch, these are guys who are independent contractors. They are operators and they're out in the wilderness and they can do everything. But what happens when you put them in a very serene environment and you give them day-to-day obligations and
Yeah.
responsibilities? How did they respond to that? Why are they failing? What is it about them that these guys seem to have it all, but yet they have nothing? I think that's the
Yeah.
appeal too.
Yeah, and I definitely see that with these films. I think John. I mean, to me, the John Wick films are the gold standard
Hmm.
for these, and I think it's interesting. Like we said, the idea about like the violence is no longer cathartic at a certain point.
Hmm.
I thought the thing with John Wick is John Wick somehow finds a way for it not to be let's see how John Wick kills this person
Hmm. Hmm.
and how is that different from that person.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is the like you said, like they build up this world as they're telling the story.
Hmm.
I don't know that all of these types of films really do
No,
that
they
or do
don't.
that as effectively. And when they don't, it does start to feel like, let's see how he
Hmm.
kills this person different from the other
Yeah.
people. So, like that's an interesting thing, man. All right. So that leads me to my second question is like, do you feel like the people like when folks go to these movies, do you think that they need to see the story evolving for it to continue to be interesting, or is it just like I ran you over with a car, next time I run you over with a truck, next time I run you over with a battle tank? Like, is that just what it is? What's the what is it? What is the genre? How does this genre evolve, or does it have to?
Um, Good questions. Good questions. Um, Human beings have short attention spans. Um,
No. It's getting shorter every day.
yeah, definitely. I hate to sound like the old man on the lawn, but you know, I remember music songs being 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Now
Mm-hmm.
they've been condensed to a minute or 2 minutes.
Yep.
I used,
2:36.
yeah, I use that to compare and contrast to the movie. You know, People came out in droves because here's this guy who doesn't have muscles galore like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
do martial arts like a Wesley Snipes or Jean Claude Van Damme. He's not a known physical actor. Who does these things. This guy is like what 5'9", buck
Maybe.
65, maybe.
Maybe.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And he's balding, receding hairline, and he's with Betty Crocker, homemaker, and he's got two kids and a picket fence. And his dad is in an older elderly home. So I think that appealed, and they were like, well, how can we put him in these situations where he still comes out on top? Got to make it believable that he's going to be wounded and he's going to be put through the grinder, but yet he still survives. And that is a metaphor for Americana and people as a whole. Pull
Mm,
yourself up by your bootstraps, dealing with the bumps and bruises. And it's not about how many times you are kicked and you're on the ground, but how many times you get up. Are you able to persevere? Are you able to remain stoic at times? And I think these movies do that well, a la John Wick. Um, where they fail is when they're redundant, when they're like, all right, we've already seen this, and now you're just pulling out like a shark attack movie or
mm-hmm.
Sharknado or something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines.
Put lasers on the shark.
Yeah, like
Lasers on top of you.
lasers. Yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And after a while, people are like, all right, I'm tired of this. This was
Mm-hmm.
okay, the first two movies. Now it's become cliche and it's a caricature of what this movie was really about.
Okay. So that's again perfect segue to my last question.
All right.
What would you have to see in a Nobody 3 storyline for it to be interesting for you?
That's good. I've got a couple ideas. One, they could do like
Okay.
yeah, I guess you could say a Godfather 2, a melding of, say, his younger self and his older self and his present self. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They could go in the direction of maybe him passing the torch off to Brady and how that develops. They could even go and have him being surprised by the government turning on him. And now he's on the run. He's got to move his family, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some different directions that they could toy with where they still keep that comedic level. They would have to kill off somebody. Unfortunately, it would have to be the dad for him to
Yeah.
go buck crazy because they've already wounded the RZA really bad. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to fall into that trope of them always killing off the black guy. They kill off the older guy. It could be like
Right.
he sacrifices himself a la Michael Weston and Burn Notice, where his
Yeah.
mom ended up blowing up the apartment in order
Yeah.
to buy the son time.
Or Whistler and Blade 3.
Yeah.
The Whistler, yeah, Whistler dying. Okay. All right. So that's some ideas.
Yeah,
And
they
if
got
if
some.
any of those ideas are used, please send a check to Sticky Floors Podcast because we need the money,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Yeah, we didn't hit on that 1.7.
No,
So, unfortunately.
no, we didn't. No, because and you would know because I'd be in here with a chain of me wearing a chain. That's what it would.
oh,
That's
what's
what
the ludicrous joint where he's got the
it
midget?
would be a chain of me wearing a chain around my neck, like right, yeah,
Yeah.
gold plated Fendi glasses. I would have them on.
That's
All right, man.
crazy.
What you got for me on
Yeah,
questions, my
man. So I
brother?
got three questions for you. The first being, can Hutch ever truly escape the cycle of violence? Or does Nobody 2 suggest that violence is an inseparable part of who he is?
So it's like I like it. It kind of dovetails with what you just said about
Mm-hmm.
like the what we'd have to see in a third one. I think he is in a cycle of violence, but the movie is in like a place where I don't think it really treats the violence itself as serious
Mm-hmm.
as it is. And like you said, the daughter is now seeing somebody break in and try to attack them. Obviously Hutch is not Batman. Like
No.
he's got to have broken bones and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'd be dead. Like he's going to be suffering severe
Oh, internal image.
consequences. And at some point, you would think him being who he is and he's not wearing a mask, like
No.
eventually somebody would kill someone in his family.
Mm-hmm.
The story would never get there because it's kind of in this box of being like not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of is going to be in that space. I don't think it will ever get out of where it is now, and I think the I feel like it's getting to, let's look at this new way that he's going to kill these people,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like what's the real consequence of his actions.
Right.
I hate tying it to John Wick because John Wick is a completely different thing. But I think the other thing that keeps the John Wick franchise alive was John was making decisions that were then having consequences that were keeping the action going.
Mm-hmm.
Like killing Santoro in
Yeah.
the kind of Continental. That's how you got John Wick 3.
Mm-hmm.
Then trying to get to the high table. Like it was something that kept the story going. I don't know if this has it.
I dig it. Question two: how does the escalation from a small personal dispute to a full-blown criminal war reflect on the unpredictability of Hutch's world?
Yeah, I think this ties very closely into what we were talking about a
Mm-hmm.
little bit earlier. The idea of you never know who you're dealing with,
Right.
and you don't know the consequences of what could happen. And if I tie it back to that book I was talking about, one of the things that they said, or maybe it was it Jocko Wilnick or Winnick? I'm sorry if I say his name
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but somebody who's like really followed a lot in terms of like the Brazilian
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu community, and he was a Navy SEAL. I remember watching this clip where he was talking about how you can get into a fight with somebody and there's so many things that can
Yeah.
happen that come from the fight that you didn't expect.
Nope.
Maybe you get hurt really badly. Maybe you get killed. Maybe you hurt the person really badly. Now you get sued. Maybe that person dies. Now you have manslaughter. Maybe he has friends. Now the friends jump you.
Mm-hmm.
But his point was like there's so many things that can happen that can go wrong from that instance that you should really try to avoid it if it's all possible to do so. I think like the thing about this and the idea of like what Hutch is going through is that there's all these unintended consequences that just keep ramping up and keep ramping up and keep ramping up. And I remember watching the movie at the end and thinking they had all these pictures of like what he did, like them together. And I was like, when did he do any of this? Because he spent the whole movie trying to kill and fight all these people. When did he like? When was he with his family? That was the whole purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So how did they even have those pictures? So it's like there's all these unintended consequences that are coming out of his actions. I don't think he really got that. And I don't think the film's really pressing the audience to figure it
No.
out either.
No. I agree. No pressure whatsoever. My last question is: does Nobody 2 present Hutch as a hero, an anti-hero, or something more morally ambiguous?
I think it's a morally ambiguous part. Well, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, well, all right, let me ask this question. How is an anti-hero different from a hero?
Uh,
I just want to, yeah, just
So my thing would be they're like a gray Jedi. Um,
Okay.
they're not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily good.
Okay.
There is an ambiguity in which they're like, yo, look, I have a wife, which is frowned upon in the Jedi
Okay.
code. However, me
Okay.
loving someone allows me to reconnect and be connected to the people I'm supposed to be protecting and serving. And I
Okay.
can see how that would lead to jealousy and anger and envy, and then utterly my entire destruction.
Okay. So I like where you went with that. Let me give it another example.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying like, all right, Batman is a hero.
Yeah.
The Punisher is an anti-hero. Because the Batman has this code, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna kill
I won't
people.
kill.
Punisher, I'm gonna kill
Yeah.
everybody. But they both have the same goal, which is like stop
Because
crime.
one is about permanency.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. All right. So he's an anti. So Hutch is an anti-hero then. I
Okay.
got that. All right. Yeah. So I'm defining that character in anti-hero terms. I don't see how he could not be though, because the stakes are so much different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got guns, everybody's fighting. He's not Batman.
Yeah.
So, I don't think he has any other choice
Mm-mm.
but to resort to extreme violence in these situations.
Got you. Got you. All right, man. What you dealing with your popcorn, yo?
All right, so popcorn on this, man. I'm giving this 2.5, man. I like I said, I thought the first one was better
Mm-hmm.
than it.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like on the line 3, 2.5 or 3. But I think I would give the first one a 3, so this one is a 2.5 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we're finally disagreeing, man. This is a solid three for me.
Finally, okay,
Solid three for me.
okay.
Yes, it could be improved. There's areas that were lackluster, if you will, but when it hits, it hits. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit more even. I just liked a little bit more consistency rather, but I'm going with three.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So my hot take on this film, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, the show on HBO Max,
Mm-hmm.
Barry,
Mm-hmm.
about the assassin who then tries to become an actor and
Yeah.
everything. And I always thought like that story format worked for that type of character.
Okay.
I think for nobody, this story would really work as a series,
Mm,
because I think it would
I can
give
see
you the
that.
time for Hutch to spend more with Sammy,
Yeah.
more with the son, more with the wife, and there could be evolving stakes
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that would work. And I do think that the guy playing Hutch can definitely carry. I mean, he's proven
Yeah.
he can carry a series,
Yeah.
and I think that I think there's like fertile ground for them to do that. I don't know if I would like be interested in a Nobody 3 movie,
Mm.
but as a television show, I could see it being interesting.
I like that. They would have to bring back all of the characters and actors. I don't know that they're going to do that for salary purposes and time
Hmm.
restraints. I don't think most people want to be locked in like that when they're able to produce or act or direct in movies made for the large
Hmm.
screen. But that would have to happen for me. My hot take is basically they set the action at an amusement park. And
Hmm.
when you think amusement park, you think America. Yes, there are amusement parks in other countries, but this seems to be like apple pie, square dancing and things like that that are quote unquote indigenous to America, populace or Americana. But
Hmm.
with that said, I think most of the people miss that there's the violence. We go on these roller coaster rides because of the threat or the potential of being scared out of the bejesus out of you, or
No
the
doubt.
thrill seeker. This is
No
a
doubt.
more socially acceptable means of doing that. It's the reason why they had bungee jumping and free fall at certain amusement parks. Great Adventure comes to mind. Um, and then you have that sense of nostalgia where you're remembering and reminiscing about what it was like to be a child, and you're in this wonderland and you can push it to the
Hmm.
limit, if you will. But I think this is not just something done for the sake of doing it or happenstance. This is a clever nod at subversiveness, of usurping and almost an anarchist way of disrupting the power structure.
Okay. There it is. There it is, man. So that's our hot takes. That's our review of Nobody 2, which once again is on streaming now. So wherever you get your movies, you can get that. And if you want to get us, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify Podcasts, we are on YouTube Podcasts, where we are pushing to get 100 new subscribers by our 100th episode. This is episode 93. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so, because you got many chances to do it. We will continue to do good work as a result of that. Next week we are back in the theaters with heavy
Oof.
spoilers with the Jordan Peele produced Him in theaters. So we're gonna
Interesting.
check that out. That might double as our annual football movie.
Oh, okay.
Like
Okay.
every
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
did Any Given
Yeah.
Sunday,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then we did last year we did The Program.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Him. That'll be our football joint for this year. So you want to see that, definitely want to hear about our review of it. Hit the subscribe button so you can check that out. Then you'll get all of our drops as they come out. We'll see you next week. Peace.